by Oxfam. And my glasses are courtesy of Specsavers. They cost £5, not £5,000. So just to get the formalities out of the way. We're going to group you into clusters. Don't look so terrified, my goodness. It looks like some of you have been in front of a headmaster before. We're going to come to that. So first of all, Vivian and Joanna, welcome, the first two of the 5 original girls. Is it fair to say that the introduction of girls to Stowe in 1974 was a little bit haphazard? Bob Drayton was on sabbatical, Bertie Stephan took over, and it was his idea. So the second master thought, I know what we're missing, girls. And so it was, this is going to sound awful, you were slipped through the cat flap of Stowe. I need to go for a retraining. But is that a fair depiction of the way this...
Absolutely.
I think the cat flap might be a bit...
Yes, unfair.
Yeah. But yes, definitely. Haphazard, I think, puts it mildly.
Yeah. And in those days, there wasn't really... Stanhope was where the medical centre is now.
But there was no Stanhope.
There was no Stanhope.
We were in the old Sam room,
yeah.
And we were linked with Bruce House because Elizabeth Mead was the house mistress of all 5 of us.
Yeah.
But yes, we were in a little room off the Sam.
They thought we needed some pastoral care, so we had a cup of coffee with her once a week.
I'm sure that did her pastoral care a lot of good. Counsel her. It was probably the last time that Stowe had really good headlines in the press. So Vivian is head girl at Stowe. So here we are, the Buckingham advertiser.
Oh, boy.
And you do look quite miserable.
Yeah.
Do you remember why you were miserable?
Yeah. I hate having my photo. Even now.
Yeah.
Smiling was therefore a little tricky.
Now, first head girl, impressive, and your father was vicar of Steeple Claydon, so quite local. And church history was one of your passions. You won a prize for church history.
Good. Oral prize for church history.
Yeah. Durham University, and then again quite an unusual career trajectory. You become a social worker.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
I think based on my experience here and elsewhere, I felt very privileged and wanted to make a difference, give something back, and it was coming very much from that incentive that I wanted to make a difference and make a contribution. So I worked initially with children and families and specialised in work in fostering and adoption and working with some voluntary adoption agents.
Well, it's terrific because James Rigetti in Chapel reflected on the diversity of careers, and I think that was a pretty unusual choice for Stoics in that particular period. So, you know, well done for being slightly disruptive and doing something.
I do hope so.
Yeah, exactly. we like the disruptives. Joanna, so you came from St Mary's Wantage.
Yes.
And you were going to do maths.
Yeah.
And then you decided not to. Do you
Yes,
remember
because Mr. Stephan said that we had to do English.
Yeah.
Because he wanted girls in his class, and he had to sit in the front row because he didn't want to look at the horrible boys.
Yeah. So, Bertie Stephan said, I want you in the front row because I don't want to look at the ugly boys, who were quite smelly as well. So you were there in the front row, and that changed?
That changed everything, because then it didn't work with maths.
Yeah. You were also musical, and
yes.
you acted in plays.
Yes.
and you're also editor of the Stoic,
Oh, I'd forgotten that.
which leads you to your career.
Yes,
So tell us about that.
I'm the opposite end of, I'm on
Yeah.
the hedonistic end of the scale,
Yeah.
in that I ended up in magazine journalism,
Yeah.
having done a certain amount of newspaper journalism in my long vacs.
Yeah.
And so I went from the Oxford Mail to a TV magazine to Condé Nast, where I spent 10 years as Vogue living editor.
Yeah. Pretty glamorous, and that all came. So you,
Well, it was a very glamorous time. We were
Yeah.
talking the 80s, and it was
Yeah.
a very glamorous time, but also a time of great change in the world of journalism, because the print unions were being
yeah.
broken up, and printing was quite different.
And going back to being one of the first girls here, Stephanie described in chapel boys with scorecards, boys being boys, and pretty misogynistic. Was it as bad as Stephanie's description?
No.
Ah, good.
I thought they were quite gallant, and they
Were they?
always waited with their umbrellas.
That's
And I learned to walk. I learned to walk very, very fast, because you can't be seen to be chasing a boy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is what we like. We different perspectives. There isn't one. There's no absolute version of truth that gets handed down by from historical Mount Sinai. So
No, I think they were very scared of us.
Well, they must have held you up on pedestals. These goddesses emerging from the woods. This idea that girls existed.
They were very scared.
Yeah.
Right. No, they were very scared. And initially didn't talk to us.
Yeah. Yeah. That must be
It took a
odd.
while. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
The very first thing that a Stoic said to me on my first morning going with Catelyn to chapel, he'd been sent to show us the way to chapel, was, why on earth do you want to come to a boys' school? And Catelyn said with some feeling, I didn't want to, my parents had said.
Good answer. So, Stephanie, you were the first, second generation. So your father was there. Was that a big influence on you coming here, hearing all these tales of Stowe in the past?
Yes, well, I mean, my father had been extremely happy here, and as I said, the school had been very good to him, because he was here during the war, and his two elder brothers, who were also Stoics, were killed in the war while he was here. So that was a huge influence on him. I have to say, he was quite surprised when he heard that Stowe were taking girls. His only memory of a girl at Stowe were the matrons, and so I think it was a big shock. And his experience was so different from ours. I mean, he remembers being on the roof with searchlights looking for enemy bombers coming over. If we were on the roof, that was a real no-no. So,
Might have been on the roof, but it would have been for a different
I never went on the roof. I just want you to know that. Yeah.
And what I love looking at all your files, these files are my retirement plan. I'm just going to blackmail people for the rest of my life. But seeing these glimpses of the person you became. So you were head of the politics and debating societies.
I think that's Luke Chavot's.
No, I've got it here.
Yeah.
Debating and politics. You won the geography prize, the history prize.
I was a real swot.
You were a
I was
swot.
a real swot.
And you got to Cambridge.
Yeah, well, that was something unusual for Stoics in those days, because
I think you're probably you may have been the first girl to Cambridge.
no. Jodie
Were there
Fuller
others?
came.
Oh yes, yeah. And then you went to J. Walter Thompson and became a fundraiser at the National Ballet.
No, I became a choreologist.
Oh yes,
No, I went.
tell us about that.
So obviously I'd given up ballet to come here,
Yeah.
and I went through Cambridge, and I went to advertising because my father said, now you need to go and get a job.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, hang on a minute, all I ever wanted to do was be a ballet dancer. So I tried advertising for a bit, and thought, if I do this for the rest of my life, I would, you know, that would not be a happy thing. So I retrained and became a choreologist, which is someone that records and writes a movement score and works with the dancers to put productions on. So I went back.
So you got back into your first love.
Yeah.
And the first female Old Stoic to get to the House of Lords.
Apparently so.
Yeah. Definitely so. Yeah. I think that deserves a round of applause. And even more remarkable, being the president of the Old Stoic Society in our centenary year. So tell us how did you feel about that? Because we've been building up to that for about 5 years.
Well,
and, I was very glad.
I have to say, when the chairman of the Old Stoic Society first said, "Please, would you take on this role?" I was like, "I haven't been back to Stowe, you know, what? No." And he's a very good persuader,
yes,
the chairman of the Old Stoics. And he said, no, it's the centenary year. And actually, with the centenary celebrations and the 50 years of girls, and my family connection to here, I just thought, you know, what a lovely opportunity to be given. One of the highlights was definitely the centenary celebrations of the Remembrance Day. And that gave me the opportunity to sort of look back at my family and bring my two uncles, who of course I never knew, alive. You know, they were in Shandos, they played rugby and cricket, and you know, and actually they were more than just names on a war memorial, and that was absolutely wonderful to be able to, and actually to come back and see all these wonderful female Stoics today. You know, I would go away with a spring in my step, and it wasn't all bad.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have got to Cambridge if I hadn't come here. So, you know, thank you.
Very good. That is Stowe. Thank you. On to clemency. There is a leitmotif developing here. So, the god of wine, Bacchus. Do you remember the Anacreon Society?
I wasn't actually ever part of the Corkscrew Society.
No, but this, okay, corkscrew, Mr. Judgeon, but Anacreon, a dining society, it's in your file. Do I have to erase some of your file? Is it inaccurate? The Anacreon is inaccurate.
I don't know.
Oh, see, there goes my wonderful link, the segue.
So sorry.
It's a food and wine society. And I thought that would lead you inextricably to
my career.
To your career.
Well,
can you tell us
probably
what your career is? Because everyone here is going to be deeply jealous.
So I'm a master of wine.
One of only 38 in the whole world.
Women who make wine, yes.
Yeah, okay. One of only 38 in the whole world. Women. But even so, well done. I want your job. Anyway, tell us about it.
So I've spent my career studying and making wine around the world. I've been lucky enough to make wine in pretty much every region around the world. I was a real science geek at Stowe. I studied chemistry, physics and biology. And Mr. Turler's still here. I can't wait to go and say hello.
He's just had his 101th term.
Amazing.
So still going strong.
So I very much use chemistry every day in my job. I advise people on sort of style, quality, characteristics, and I'm sort of obsessed with the flavour and development of wine specifically.
And were we drinking some of your wine?
You are, yes.
English Pink.
English Pink is my rosé that I make from...
It's good, isn't it?
I have worked in Provence as well, so I've probably stolen a few of their ideas to bring to the UK to work with some grapes over here. And am I allowed to say that I learnt to drink at Stowe?
I think you've got your master's at Stowe. Your PhD came later. Yes, no, because it was all perfectly legal.
It was, yeah.
We were educating you.
You were educating me in the wonders of wine and the amazing moments you get to share with friends over a bottle of wine.
Yeah. So what a great skill, don't you think? More valuable than any GCSE or A-level certificate. No, I think we thoroughly approve. Thank you. Marilyn, over to you. you really don't need much of an introduction because we use your image a lot as a change maker and somebody who really has helped us with Change 100. Do you want to tell us about that association and how... Marilyn, by the way, is our Olympic runner. The first Stoic Olympian. We now have another, James Rudkin. Yeah, you are.
So yes, I just remember you were talking about not chasing the boys, they couldn't keep up with me. Training, I loved it. And yeah, so it was an honour to sort of be invited back, and you know, I come from, I'll say Wembley, but I come from Stonebridge, which is tucked behind the arches and, you know, an area of great deprivation. So this was a world away from what I knew, and the opportunity to kind of champion, you know, going into diverse environments and saying, you know, hey, you can be in an environment like this and you can belong. 100% wanted to support that because I had, this was such a great springboard for me into what I've gone on to do. An environment to just find out who I was. I had a great community around me, and it could have been different. You know, I did stand out, but I thought, why not? I was born to stand out, and it was an environment that included me as well. So,
do you know why they accepted you, gave you a scholarship? I've read through your notes. When you were interviewed, you said, I read Shakespeare for fun. and the person who interviewed you just said, we have to take Marilyn. So it wasn't just for your running. I mean, you were already a national champion. Everyone knew you were going to be an Olympian. But you have so many other attributes. Let me read your UCAS reference to you. This is what they said about you when you left. Boundless energy with disarming honesty and natural compassion for others. Isn't that amazing? But, and I've cleared this with Marilyn, you weren't completely perfect in all respects. So there is an interesting note where you weren't, in fact, you were very clever. You got caught doing something. I'm going to get you to confess to what it was. But you resigned as prefect before you got deprefected. And then what is even more remarkable, you were then reinstated because of the positive attitude you showed. So tell us what happened.
basically, just debunking the myth that athletes don't drink. And I didn't drink much, but I was a bit drunk because, you know, 2 beers probably. But yeah, I was caught, you know, breaking the rules. So.
Breaking the rules.
Blame the boys. Didn't want it anyway. It was a lovely rosé, actually.
There you go. And you were also in Oliver. What was the part you played in Oliver?
I played Nancy.
Do you want to give us a quick burst of Nancy? You remember it? Some great lines. That is not fair.
As long as he needs me.
Marilyn also speaks French and Spanish fluently, and I could keep going for hours like this.
On va continuer en français alors.
Now I'm going to have to speak German. Right. Thank you, Marilyn. Now, Miller or Milker? Miller. Our first reality TV star.
Oh gosh.
Tell us about your appearance on national TV.
Well, rather embarrassingly, I was asked to be, when I was starting my career as a junior doctor, the BBC was filming at Chelsea and Westminster where I was starting, and they rang me up one day and said, would you like to come and be on Junior Doctors? I thought this was absolute madness, and I told my mother that I thought it was really funny, they wouldn't stop ringing. And she said, you've got to take this on, because my dad had quite a big stroke at that point, and so it was actually really nice to kind of for me to kind of get on with things and get back into my medical career. So it was quite a pivotal moment, actually. All the others did it for the fame and fortune, for the girls, you know, for the boys. I actually did it to kind of really, really get me into my clinical career. So 6 months.
But you became quite famous as well.
I mean, it was, I don't know, it was watched by, I don't know, 2 to 3 million,
Yeah.
I think, each weekend. It was, you know, each week, Sunday Times. But it was an incredible experience. I mean, 6 months of cameras, living in a house together, day and night. So it was quite tough.
And again, you're another change maker. On open days, I talk about you, and I talk about what you did during the pandemic. Do you want to just share some of your experiences and how you helped in hospitals and the governance of hospitals?
Yeah, so at that point when COVID struck, I mean, this is part of my medical career. I've now sort of jumped to something completely different. When COVID struck, I was actually working as a clinical research fellow, looking at patient flow and also healthcare governance. And so I was pulled in by the government, but also the Scottish government as well, to actually help on quite a lot of the white papers. So I helped on things like creating new intensive care units and ensuring that we had enough oxygen security and drugs available, which was actually a really big issue. We didn't have enough sedatives to keep people asleep if they were in intensive care. And so things like that, and I had to kind of liaise with Italian teams who were, you know, a couple of weeks ahead of us in terms of the pandemic. So it was quite tough. I actually think everybody else had a really nice break and spent time with their families. And actually, I don't think I've ever worked so hard as I did during the pandemic.
And again, you're another disruptor.
I hope so.
Tell us about what you're doing now. It's tech and it's medicine, it's investment. Tell us about what you're doing.
And it's amazing actually hearing everybody and how their trajectories sort of happened from Stowe. And I think medicine was really the beginning here, but I think so many other things that I did here helped with what I'm doing now. So I ended up going towards biotechnology at Cambridge, and then from there working in venture capital. And recognizing some of the issues around making investment decisions and needing the right experts to input into these, particularly around the clinical aspects, but also the academics. So yeah, so I've created, I now run a platform to my complete surprise, and I don't run a health tech, I run a fintech for healthcare companies, and I basically evaluate them with the right top academics and clinicians across the country to help make some of the investment decisions. And actually, it really is just amazing to think that it all started here when I was doing debating, I was doing Headmasters Essay Society, all of the...
Orchestra.
Orchestra, yes, indeed, and string orchestra.
Busy.
I was very busy, but I loved it here, and it's been such a pivotal thing. I mean, I still sit on the Old Stoic committee as well.
Yeah, thank you. Annie, I remember, so we're now into my era, so I did actually need my notes anymore, which is wonderful. So Annie, I remember when you first arrived, and you weren't actually looking at Stowe. You were going to go to rugby.
Yeah, I was. I know.
What made you choose Stowe over that awful school in the Midlands?
The long drive.
Yeah, the long drive, yeah.
And far away from Cheshire.
Now, I was really impressed because English isn't your first language, is it?
Joint English and Swedish.
And Swedish,
Yeah.
so you're another very gifted linguist. And went on to do PPE at LSE.
Yes, politics and philosophy. No economics, but yeah, politics and philosophy at LSE.
And things had begun to settle down, so we were full co-education, so from 2005. In fact, it was all, again, another bit of a theme emerging. The second iteration, when we became fully co-educational, was also a little bit chaotic because I slightly jumped the gun. And we had two girls in the school, Charlotte Matthews and Natalie McDade, who arrived in September 2004 before I had told the governors that we were going to go fully co-ed. So I thought, and they had to join Temple, and I said, for goodness sake, don't tell anyone, they're girls. So again, slightly chaotic. And when it went before the governors, I had to say, I really, really think you should endorse this proposal, because they were saying, give it another 5 years and see where you go. And thankfully, I've never told the governors that there were already girls in the school when they. So you don't tell them. There are no governors here. Don't tell them that the decision had been taken before the motion had been carried. Annie, back to you. In the file, it says you have dyslexia.
Yes, yeah, and so it was great.
So tell us about overcoming dyslexia and how Stowe helped you with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they gave me so many techniques, and when I arrived at LSE reading politics and philosophy, which is not a dyslexic person's friend, they were very shocked that I was doing that. But yeah, obviously they had I had the help beforehand.
and you won't tell us, but I can. So Annie's transcript is the GCSEs are all perfect A's and A stars, and A's at A-level. So an amazing achievement. And you're working for KPMG now.
Yes.
So what are you doing?
So I work in their deal advisory, selling real estate, working as in real estate and financial advisory there. Yeah, so.
Mr. Dodgen over there would like to meet you. He's our fundraiser. I'll be yet another person. I don't need my notes. I remember meeting. Do you remember I came to your prep school? I did speech day at St. John's.
I do.
Can you remember what I said?
No, I can't.
No, I can't. that makes two of us. I can't. I think I told some very corny jokes. So you came academic scholar, Roxburgh scholar, hockey, netball, tennis, Jasper and Tilly, so you're the long line. Do you know why you came to Stowe? Do you know how my connection with the Upton family?
I actually don't know the connect. Is it to do with my dad?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Do you not know that?
No, don't tell me.
Yeah, you must know.
No, I don't.
So, okay, exactly. We were Cambridge together, and we were in some obscure dining society. Also, this is something I don't often say about sex. I've been on holiday with Bobby. That sounds terrible. But with you and the family.
Yeah, dancing on tables. It was a
You took a film of that.
difference. Yeah, I did. I remember you seeing.
So there was a skiing holiday, and it was lunch. It was a lunch.
It was lunch.
It was lunchtime. Anyway, crashing on. But Hugo and I, your father and I, we were contemporaries at Cambridge.
Yeah, so when you say why did I come to Stowe, so my brother and my sister were here, and yeah, so for me we didn't really look anywhere else, so
quite right.
Stowe.
None of this riff-raff going to rugby. Okay, so tell us about British eventing. So you've had we've been following your career. You're very good on IG and social media.
IG, very trendy.
I'm down with the kids. So go on, tell us about your career.
Yeah, so I'm an event rider for Great Britain. I've been lucky enough to ride for my country 5 times and medal 7 times at the European Championships. I was shortlisted for my first Olympic Games this year, and yeah, I'm the 2-time under-25 champion. God, it's horrible talking about myself. But yeah, so that's what I do, and it all began here.
And amazing.
Oh dear, we miss all that. Lucky you guys.
I think this is the invitation to sing. We talk about it's a Spice Girls reunion. So, tell us what happened. So you were shortlisted for the Olympics in Paris, and then tell us about what happened before that, which stopped you going to Paris.
Well, yeah, so this time last year in August, I very sadly had a bad fall riding at home, and I was left paralysed on my right side and had 7 hours of emergency spinal surgery where my surgeon, I owe him everything. After the surgery, I regained sensation in both legs, but I had no movement of my right side. And it was pretty scary, I think, definitely for myself and for my parents. But I've never been so grateful for the work that, doctors and the medical,
medical people do. And yeah, like I say, I genuinely owe him everything. I would not be standing here today, let alone I got back on a horse 3 months later, and then...
Not just got back on a horse. You were the lead rider at badminton 3 months later. And
not quite 3, but yeah, we'll go with 3.
Never knowingly exaggerated a story in my life.
My dad says the same thing. That must have been a Cambridge
It's
thing.
a Cambridge thing. But what an extraordinary example of grit, resilience, determination, and just sheer bloody mindedness that you didn't allow adversity to determine your fortune. Los Angeles?
Well, yeah, that's the goal now. So I was shortlisted, for Paris this year, but so I came back and I competed this season and then got shortlisted on the back of this year with, now half metal my spine. So that was beyond my wildest dreams for this year. That was never in the plan for my comeback year as such. I don't think my surgeon ever quite knew what I was going to do when he said I could ride again. I think he had a slightly different idea of riding to what I then went on and did. But like I say, I owe him everything, and LA is the plan for 2028. Bring it on.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, my takeaway from this is, boys, you need to up your game. Thank you so much to our changemaker, our pioneering girls. You are amazing. You're special. You have achieved extraordinary things. And thank you for coming back today and being part of this very special anniversary. Thank you.